I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show we have Jacob Sansbury, CEO of Pluto. Jacob, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time today.
Absolutely, Ashton. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Excited to dive into your insights into emerging markets, where you see Bitcoin and cryptocurrency going, and how can retail investors stay ahead. I would love to start off with just hearing a little bit on your background and how you got involved with Pluto and how Pluto fits into the blockchain world.
Yeah, absolutely. So me and my co-founder and middle school best friend, Dakota, we have been working on automated trading for ourselves for quite a while, and we wanted to bring a lot of the capabilities that I saw in my background in Bridgewater to the retail trading space. So we are really excited to bring this awesome new capability of building strategies to express your investing ideas instead of having to manually buy and sell your assets yourself. And we think crypto's an awesome space to really build out these capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Great. And obviously having easy tools that people that are, I feel like there's a lot of people in cryptocurrency that they weren't experts in traditional markets. They haven't been a stock market trader for 20 years, and that they see this as their way of starting to invest. How are you catering the product? And maybe you can just explain how it helps retail traders and the groups that you're focused on.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the past 50 years, the best investors have picked people to manage their money according to these rules and principles. Hedge fund managers each have a different approach to the market. And so by building a way for retail investors to really understand what their investing system is and then test that against historical data in a way that doesn't require being a data expert or a software engineer, we let people really understand the impact of their ideas and decisions before they're made on their real money, which is a really awesome superpower and lets you start to understand the market in a much more experimental way without having to risk your savings in retirement for learning a new approach to the market. So for a lot of our product, we've spent a ton of time thinking about what are the metrics, what are the ways to present numbers and performance ideas in a way that teaches people as opposed to just showing them the raw information. So for example, when you run a test on one of your new investing systems or strategies, instead of just telling you what return you got, we show you your return versus the benchmark. And we say this is what you made, but this is what S&P 500 made, or this is what Bitcoin made during the same time, so that you can understand what your strategy does versus the benchmark instead of just the performance.
That makes total sense. And yeah, it's a lot of people think they're up, but sometimes it's tough if you're trading altcoins and you're not measuring it in Bitcoin versus dollars, and it looks like you're up, but then really a lot of the times people are over trading and they end up losing money from over trading. And if you would have just held Bitcoin from the beginning, then you'd be up a lot more, right? And so that's why it's good to have all of this extra information when you are trading or investing to understand exactly where you are relative to everything else. So, and with Pluto, are you able to track? Is there anything that you can't track? There's different blockchains, there's different speculative coins, there's the main coins, there's your fiat position. So sort of how do you get a picture of everything? Yeah,
that's definitely a great question. So when we think about the types of data that Pluto supports, today and at launch, we are really focused on fundamental data for different coins, and then their recent price action going back as far as to the first ICO. So when we think about how this evolves going into the future, currently you can look at indicators, you can look at the pricing data for different coins and assets. You can look at volumes and inflows and outflows. And then in the future, we want to release social sentiment data, understanding how different people and threads are feeling about different assets at that time, and being able to buy into the most popular or most exciting. And then really being able to connect that back to the performance and understanding how that impacts your strategy and how each data point is working in your portfolio.
Mm-hmm. Great points. And definitely when you zoom out and look at it on a macroeconomic level, I think some of the macroeconomic long-term investors that look at global investing have done really well over the last decades because they really have a great picture of it all. And a lot of retailers when they get into crypto, they get really stuck, in the weeds, and they're like looking at really short time frames, or they see the volatility. But when you zoom out, same goes for Bitcoin. It can be volatile, but when you zoom out, it's really only going one direction. And when you zoom out on the macroeconomic trend of crypto as a whole, outside of the Western world, there's still like so much real world adoption of this technology, and lowering the barriers to entry for new people to invest in these kind of markets that they just weren't able to do so when there was only the US stock market. Seeing a lot of emerging markets and emerging countries being able to get into these assets. What's your insights on the macroeconomic scale and emerging markets, and what kind of new users could potentially be using Pluto for their first investments?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the really amazing superpowers that crypto gives people is the ability to participate in a meaningful way in projects and companies and new exciting initiatives that up to this point have really only been available to VCs or accredited investors. And so, we're in a very nascent stage in the industry where there's still a lot of figuring out to do in terms of the best types of companies, how to assess different tokens. But one of the things I'm really excited about is as we start to bring on more and more people and processes into the blockchain and crypto space, the number of great projects that will really change the world is going to dramatically increase. And so, today crypto can be called a speculative market. It can be called a lot of things, but over time, I think it will become, a great equalizer for people who want to participate in the best projects, but can't because they're not an accredited investor in traditional markets.
Definitely. And I feel like it's a great technology, but there's definitely a lot of, siphoning through noise and projects that seem good, but they won't make it in the long run. And we sort of saw that in the .com boom, where only there's a few companies that came out of that changed the entire world. There's a lot of companies that didn't really make it as well. Another thing that I feel like, you mentioned there about social sentiments, and it's great to have on-chain analytics to sort of see where the markets are moving, and also off-chain with social media, which it's sometimes, I feel like retail investors specifically, they sort of hinge on the social media narrative of, they see on crypto Twitter, people are saying like hodl, or, there's a lot of fear in the market, and they base their investing and trading decisions based off of fear and speculation. But I also feel like there's something that we didn't really touch on yet, which is when this is also sort of off-chain data, is like the monetary policy, fiscal policy, regulation, which I feel like is going to be continually increasing in cryptocurrencies as well. How would you sort of manage that information and incorporate that into, how do we manage our portfolio based on this new off-chain information?
Yeah, that's definitely going to be really interesting as we move forward. So, the on-chain analytics, all that stuff, I think there's a lot of great capabilities that already exist. And one of Pluto's really exciting future focuses, like I said, is being able to build quantitative and qualitative strategies around social sentiment, being able to say, if this new token or project or if this existing asset begins to gain traction, I want to include it as a bigger and bigger part of my portfolio. And so that type of expression is going to be really important moving forward, especially, like I said, as we start to bring on new projects and companies that have the potential to do really dramatic things for the world. I think that being able to incorporate social sentiment in your investing portfolio in a way that's a lot more testable and deterministic than just, I heard about this project, or I see this set of people tweeting about it, will be a really awesome superpower for investors moving forward. We'd also really love to find some ways to incorporate regulation into our events-driven strategies. So hopefully we can look forward to some more information about that in the future.
For sure. And I feel like there's sentiment where, if regulation comes in, then, it's a negative sign where, the markets are, people don't like it. But I feel like maybe in the same way that, you see these S curves, and then there's adoption, but then it dips down. But in the long run, it actually is the same technology that brings everything to become even stronger. Once that initial uncertainty sort of settles in, I feel like those are different metrics to be able to measure, on like short-term effects of regulation versus long-term effects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am definitely of the opinion that regulation will be good for the long term. I think in order to really get the caliber of projects and talent that crypto needs to be successful with, the masses and really wide scale adoption, we need to see some more consistent rules and regulations for especially more centralized players like exchanges.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And Jacob, I'm curious, being a CEO in the Web3 space, there's a whole new younger generation of CEOs and founders that are paving the way for the future of innovation in the world. But at the same time, we're also doing a lot of pitching and sitting, across from people that have been in traditional finance for decades and decades, longer than some of us have been alive, right? How have you handled that as a young CEO, and what advice would you give to young CEOs and founders that are, and in the way that they can take command and sway a room of power for people that might be much older than them?
Yeah, that's a really challenging problem that's facing a lot of founders today. And I think one of my unique advantages as a founder is that in my time at Bridgewater, I saw what great governance looks like. I saw what great leadership and really deeply understanding risk controls, security, and the way to manage customer and client expectations was Bridgewater's best in class at all of those things. And so watching my leadership do that while I was an employee there really shaped a lot of my understanding and view of those things, and honestly experience and a really deep set of relationships is required to be great at it at an organizational level. So the Pluto strategy will really look like, let's execute amazingly on our product vision, and then let's hire the absolute best security, compliance, and risk controls people to build the best possible risk controls and security organization possible. And that's not something that I trust myself to do, but I think that after seeing what great looks like, I think that hiring an awesome team will be one of my great superpowers. So my advice for other founders is to let the experience that a lot of these people that a lot of these experts have speak for themselves, and just hire a really awesome team to fill in those blind spots. Because unless you've been in that type of role in traditional finance and really understood the regulations and the requirements from institutional grade clients, it'll be really difficult to be world class at that type of initiative.
Great point. And I was speaking with some other executives earlier today, and they were talking about the level of security needed, especially in DeFi and protecting smart contracts, but also in CeFi, as we've seen with the centralized exchanges and FTX crashing. People were just trusting them, and obviously if it's not the smart contract security, it's like the security of the operations of the executive teams not really following the roadmap, doing what they were going to say that they were going to do, and all of a sudden the company comes crashing down. In what ways does Pluto have to, watch its security and sort of check all those boxes to build trust, and also not need to have trust, but allow people to verify that the product that they're using is safe, secure, and in their best interest?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the big problems that we've seen recently is that because of the lack of regulation in the space, a lot of entities don't have very substantial transparency or regulatory auditing requirements. And so they're able to get away with much more lax risk controls. And because there's no outward pressure to build those risk controls, from a business standpoint, looking at the cost of putting together those rockstar teams, it's sometimes easy to make the mistake that, it's not a cost that's justifiable in the moment. But the Pluto perspective is like, the big goal for Pluto is to be asset class agnostic. We want to support cryptocurrencies in a really awesome first class way. We want to support US equities and futures and forex, and the list goes on. But at the end of the day, that requires us to be run like a US equities brokerage. So when we start to look at the roadmap for the next 12 to 18 months, a lot of that looks like how do we prepare ourselves today for a brokerage license, which is a very highly regulated and audited process that requires us to be very transparent about our operations. So that's the mindset that we've gone into building our operations teams with. And so, looking into the future, that's the type of transparency and regulatory scrutiny that you can expect from our product and team. And I think that the way forward is very similar for other centralized crypto projects. You have to think about things in the context of traditional finance. There's a reason that those regulations are in place, and I think a lot of people are getting exposure to that for the first time in the last few weeks. And so, embracing that regulation as a way to protect customers and build a stronger foundation for the industry, I think will be really important moving forward.
Wow, very well said, Jacob, and I completely agree. If the big money and the institutions are going to come in, they're going to want the same security as they have in traditional finance, and that regulation and the investor protection as well. Now, moving into 2023, especially in emerging markets, I feel like there's going to be a lot more retail investors joining in. In terms of more of the short to near term functionality on the crypto side, and what can we expect from Pluto in fun new things that are going to become available to the users on the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're launching with the top 10 tokens right away, and we're really excited to continue to expand that list. Some other really interesting things that we're exploring are ways to participate in different DAOs or NFT projects automatically, ways to build Pluto strategies that can be turned into an NFT, which essentially will give you access to monetize that strategy. So we'll be thinking a lot about building tools for creators of genuine assets, strategies, approaches to the market. It's what a hedge fund is. It's why they have value, to be able to monetize and make some money off of that strategy. So look forward to the Pluto marketplace probably coming towards the beginning of next year.
Very cool. And what is the best way for people to follow along with these updates and to get involved with Pluto when the time is right?
Yeah, so following our Twitter at @InvestWithPluto and signing up to join the waitlist for live trading and beginning to build strategies at Pluto.fi.
Sounds great, Jacob. Thank you so much for your time. I will leave those links in the description box below as well. I appreciate it. All the best with the upcoming launch, and let's follow up in the near future.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Ashton.